Mark Jones in the house. Mark, how you doing, man?
Outstanding. This is my favorite time of the basketball calendar year, man. Coming down the stretch run, 20, 21 games to go, regular season. Jacked. Just got back from Clippers in Houston on Wednesday night for ESPN and looking forward to tomorrow's game for us.
Yeah. You are the busiest man in America.
It's crazy.
Mark, how many miles do you fly a year?
Well, I'm executive platinum on American. I'm already diamond on Delta, and I'm about to hit another barrier status on United. The only one that I don't check all the boxes on so far is Southwest, because I'm so lazy. I still haven't joined up for the program, which is really bad. That's negligent, man. I'm like taking food off my own plate. But yeah, I was concierge on American Airlines. I'm probably going to hit that again, concierge key, pretty soon.
Yeah, because American Airline, they give you the companion pass. I mean, you and the wife can fly wherever you want once you hit that level. So that's nice.
Yeah, I'm sitting with about 380,000 miles in my American account right now, and I'm constantly turning over tickets to, for my wife flying places with me, my daughter's coming to games and that kind of thing too. So it's pretty wild. But the concierge key service, guys, it's like going to heaven, honestly. Like the first time I got concierge, you get off the plane and you feel like the foreign exchange student. They have the sign up there with your name on it. I'm like, and nobody told me that I'd gotten concierge keys. So I thought something was wrong the first time I saw it. I have this negative cognition problem, So they said, no, Mr. Jones, they took me down. This was at DFW in Dallas. They took me down on the tarmac and drove me in this nice fancy SUV to my next flight. I didn't have to take the train. I'm like, oh, wow. I hope they got the right guy here. And if they don't, it's like trading places,
That's right. Some other guy named Mark Jones standing there waiting. He's like, where's my car? Where's my car? Kings broadcaster, ESPN broadcaster Mark Jones, and one of the most well-traveled people in America joining us. Man, heck of a game last night for the Kings. What do you make of these games where they go and they stuff the Lakers in a locker one night, and then the next night they have trouble putting away the Victor Wembanyama-less San Antonio Spurs?
Yeah, at this point of the deal, man, like whether you win or lose with somebody really doesn't matter. Winning in this league is hard, and this team, you just take it as a W on the way out. And what I liked about last night in particular was being able to come up with the defining clutch stop at the end with, Domas jumping the passing lane and getting the breakaway layup. And, I know we're ranked 20th right now in defensive rating, but going back to last year, the Kings showed the ability to get stops and have a good defensive rating number in the postseason. So my hope is that when the time comes, they can do that. Hopefully we can play defense well enough to get into the top 6 and not the play-in, because that's treacherous. If you end up there, you don't want to do that, whether it's Dallas or the Lakers or Golden State or Phoenix or whomever. But I like the way the team is trending right now. This next stretch of 5 home games is going to be really pivotal. Just to underscore that point, I was watching that Phoenix-Denver game the other day, and Phoenix goes into Denver and beats them without Devin Booker. So, it doesn't matter who's on the floor right now. You can say this team's missing that guy, this team's missing the other guy. Hey, you win, on to the next.
Yeah, that point. I mean, we watched the Clippers lose to the Bucks with Giannis and Chris Middleton out. Right. And it's kind of one of those things that league-wide, you're somebody who calls so many games. Does this feel unique to this season where 20-point margins don't really matter? Who's playing and who's not doesn't really matter. Each and every night seems to be like one giant upset, and one team disappoints or one team like shocks the world. And it feels like it's sort of the trend of the league or the personality of this specific season of NBA basketball.
Yeah, that's a great point. It does feel different. And, it's fun because it lends itself to some pretty incredible storylines. Like, we've seen in Sacramento, Keon Clark come off the bench of late and give this team a great boost. I did the Phoenix Suns game a couple of nights ago down in the desert, and Grayson Allen hits 6 threes. You get to a point where you have guys in the rotation who might not be primary players stepping up and providing what a team needs. And in the context of the Kings right now, Keon Ellis, you have Davion Mitchell, you have Trey Lyles. I think that Mike Brown and his staff can take comfort and solace in the fact that 1 through 10 guys are contributing right now, because you never know who might go down, right? Look at the Timberwolves. They lose Karl Anthony Towns. Booker's out, like I mentioned, with Phoenix. Our athletic training staff in Sacramento is one of the elite ones in the NBA, top to bottom. We've been the healthiest team in the league, amongst the healthiest teams in the league. I know we were number 1 last year. This year, just as good. But to be able to have guys to fill in when you're missing people, we've seen Fox miss games recently and have the team play well. So that's really the story. That is something that I think, James, that's a good point that has happened this year. You've seen these guys step up.
Talking with Mark Jones, Kings broadcaster. He's also a broadcaster for ESPN. Turn on a basketball game, and chances are he's going to be calling it.
Hey, but I'm doing the Kings game tomorrow. That's great. I'm happy about being at Golden One Center.
Cannot wait for that. You mentioned
Sunday. Pardon me, Sunday against Sunday.
You mentioned Karl Anthony Towns, and that injury with Minnesota. But then we talked about this yesterday. Like where does that put Minnesota in the standings? Since the All-Star break, they've struggled against good teams and they've been beating bad teams. Where do they kind of wind up here? And then you go see Anthony Edwards last night just kind of take over that game and have that spectacular block to finish the game. Can he carry them and keep them afloat in the race for the 1 seed, do you think?
I think he's capable of doing it. I don't think that people should look at Minnesota now in the light of Karl Anthony Towns' injury through that prism and think that they're cooked, because they're not. Anthony Edwards, I really think, is the next face of this league. There are times where he'll struggle offensively, like their entire offense does, but there are moments of brilliance, like last night where he goes for 44. And we saw it this summer with USA Basketball on a team of, not quite superstars, but elite players in the NBA. He was far and above the best guy on the roster. And I think without Cat in there, Karl Anthony Towns, they figured out the spacing a little bit, but I think it puts more on Anthony Edwards' plate, and he understands that responsibility. And Ant I spent a little time with him recently. He's an old soul. Like, he understands. He's got pretty good perspective, and despite you go behind that engaging smile of his, he's got really good sense of where he falls in the pantheon of the NBA right now, and unbridled confidence. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's still 1 or 2 when it's all said and done. They still have the number 1 defense in the NBA.
Mark, I wanted to ask you, it kind of plays into the other question that about, the 20-point lead this season, but like, it does feel like there's a different vibe this year because of the new rule, the 65 game rule for stars to basically be all NBA or be eligible for postseason awards. When you're out and about, do you feel that with some of these teams? I mean, again, like Devin Booker, he's right on the cusp. Like he got injured. I think he was at 11 games missed. He can only miss like another 5 games, or he's out. Karl Anthony Towns may not play again in the regular season and wouldn't be eligible for postseason.
Right.
Embiid. But do you feel like there is an added pressure? And then secondly, what do you think it's going to mean in the playoffs when a guy like Kawhi Leonard, who plays 55 games a year, all of a sudden plays 75? And what's he going to look like in a 7-game series? Is there another question there?
Yeah, I think to answer your first one, do I feel the impact of it? Definitely. I think players are talking about it. They're aware of how many games they've played. I think, deep down inside, if you ask Joel Embiid if he would do it all over again, he might take a different track on his injury. But I think at this point, James, it's almost become a little bit too punitive. Call me crazy. But if a guy's hurt, like Devin Booker is a guy that likes to play basketball. He's not going to load manage. He'll fight his athletic training staff, and he'll fight Frank Vogel on playing games. If he's not playing, it's for good reason. And I don't think that should preclude him from being, qualified for one of the NBA awards at 65 games with that limit. And I think it's going to have an impact on some guys when it comes to the playoffs, because once they hit, I think coaches are aware of it too. So once guys hit that 65, right, that makes them eligible for postseason awards, that's when you see the load managing come on. So, Ty Lue, if the Clippers have secured a top 4 home court advantage spot, and Paul George or Kawhi or James Harden, whoever it might be, needs to be rested, and there's no changing into the significance of who they might meet in the first round of matchup, you're going to see guys rest, because at the end of the day, it all matters what your relative health looks like when the plane lands on April the 13th or whatever it is, the last day of the regular season, because that's when it really counts. Denver, what they won it last year, being the number 3 seed, right? Were they number 3 seed last year? I think
no,
they were number 1. They were number 1.
Number 3.
Yeah.
Memphis.
I'm sorry, we were number 3. Yeah, but there are teams that have won the championship, being a non-number 1 seed or number 2 seed. So look at the Miami Heat last year, from the play-in to the NBA Finals. Mind you, there's a playoff Jimmy factor involved there, but I think teams are going to be managed with respect to their stars after the 65 number has been hit, because they talk about it. They may tell us they don't, but they do.
Yep. You mentioned the Houston Rockets as we talk with Mark Jones, voice of the Sacramento Kings. He will be on the call for the Kings-Rockets game on Sunday. They started 15-12. Since then, they are 12-23. They are mostly out of the play-in race at this point. Do you still feel like, because at the beginning of the year, it looked like, man, this is an ascending team. Look at all this young talent. They bring in these veterans, and it's Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks has got him on the right track. What do you think happened that led them to be 12-23? And B, do you still feel like they're one of those ascending teams in the West?
Yeah, they had some injuries which really kind of hurt them. Mm-hmm. Fred was out for a little bit. Terry Eason just recently underwent season-ending surgery. It's still a relatively young team when you look at Jabari Smith and Jalen Green, who's still looking for a measure of consistency, and even Şengün, who, despite his lofty numbers of late, had a season high, career high, 45, 46 the other night, is undergoing some moments of frustration still offensively, because now he's moved to the number 1, number 2 guy, at least on the scouting report. So they're going to have those bumpy moments, and that's why they're not quite where Ime Udoka would have hoped they would be. But I'll say this, they are undergoing right now what we did last year in Sacramento, which is to say a culture change in real time. I've seen it a couple of times. I did their game a couple of nights ago. Ime Udoka is serving out undistilled, hard, brutal truths to his players, and that's how they're changing the culture. They've done well that way. Anytime one of their guys told me, if you see Ime with his hand over his mouth talking to a player, it means that a whole line of expletives are coming out of his mouth. So look for Sunday. If he's doing this and it looks like he's smiling while talking to one of his players, he's saying, "Hey, you got to pass that ball because and then he'll pat him on the butt and have him go on his way if it's Jalen Green or Jabari." So that's one thing. But two, they're going to be a team of the future, because they have a decision to make on Jalen Green. He's averaging about 17, 18 a game, but shooting only 40% from the field. Şengün is going to be the hub of what they do moving forward. He's spectacular. He's kind of a poor man's Sabonis, right? And then Jabari Smith is one of the most improved players in the NBA this year that nobody's talking about. So they've got a bright future.
No doubt.
Yeah, I think when you look at that team, they could use the De'Aaron Fox type players, the ultimate scorer to go with Şengün.
Yeah.
But then the Kings could really use Jabari Smith. That's the guy, like
little length. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy who can block shots, the guy that can hit a 3-ball, who can extend the floor, who can play alongside Sabonis. It's almost like they stumbled into that pairing because Şengün just became so good so quickly.
Yeah.
And then, next season, I think they're going to be really impressive too. Cam Whitmore is a guy that just looks like a ball player.
Yeah.
And then Amin Thompson, and they went out and they traded for Steven Adams. And what's that going to look like next season if he's healthy? They're going to be tough. They're going to be
You mentioned you conspicuous by his absence. You left one name out, and he's the guy that I love. He's the guy that I love, and he's the guy that really epitomizes part of the culture change, along with Fred VanVleet, which is Dylan Brooks.
Oh yeah,
I would love a Dylan Brooks on my team anytime. And here's a trend that we can look for on Sunday afternoon's game in Sacramento. At some point, there will be a scuffle between Dylan Brooks and somebody. Pick the guy on the Sacramento Kings. I'm guessing either
Malik.
Or Trey Lyles is our Debo, right?
Yeah,
true.
Trey Lyles is the guy we send to go get our bike back when somebody steals it. So I'm saying it's Trey Lyles and Dylan Brooks. That's, if there's a DraftKings proposal on that, somebody tell me about it. We're not allowed to wager, but somebody tell me about that, because that's the way I see it. It's going to be Trey Lyles. It's going to be Dylan Brooks. Dylan's going to say something. I can remember a couple of years ago when he was at Memphis, he walked by our bench and said, "Coach, man, you guys suck. Get somebody out here who can guard me." I mean, he's going to do something on Sunday. So that's part of the fun for the game for me. I look forward to that.
Mark Jones, voice of the Sacramento Kings. He's just going to join us for the handoff, if that's okay. Kenny Carroll, D'Lo and KC fame in the building.
It's the Louis Vuitton Don. He gives you guys video work. We don't even get video work.
Wow,
we just get the baritone. So it's just I'm just grateful to be here.
I got the product ready this morning, Kate.
You're all glued back together.
What's up, Big Mark? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. You guys do great work, all of you guys, man. Look forward to it, man. But hey, send me the link next time. I'll come on the video. I'll do the video.
No doubt. Yeah. He's just a busy man. Like I said, I don't want to bother him on the.
You're talking about on the
three-story yacht. You know what I'm saying? Crazy. Going down. What do they call the water in between?
The intercoastal
from Miami.
The intercoastal, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to bother him on the intercoastal when he on
three you see how quickly
yacht.
He knew that too? You said, "What's the water's like the intercoastal?"
The intercoastal. That's where I hang out.
Hey man, there's a lot of stuff, good and bad, coming through that intercoastal. You know what I mean?
I've been watching Griselda. I know what's going on.
Got to feed the trade in Miami sometimes.
Oh man,
that's good radio. That's good radio. Mark, how the one thing I'm always amazed by you is your ability to work with anybody. Just how do you do this? Where one night you might be with Doris, one night you might be with Katie Christensen, one night you just shift gears and are able to move from one partner to the next when it comes to broadcasting.
Wow, I think is just wrapped in my love and passion for the NBA, and being ready. And I've worked with so many different people. You kind of get used to it, James, over the years. Getting to know the vibe of the person next to you counts. Doris and I, we've worked together over a decade, so that one's easy. Katie and I for several years now. That one's become a lot easier too. But it really comes down to just having a conversation, with the person that you're sitting next to, and looking at Katie and saying, "Hey, man, 4 seconds to go. Are they switching everything, or are you fighting over screens here?" It's a basketball question or action about a play that I might ask a coach or a player or anybody else with good insights on the game relative to the situation. So and I have fun. I'm always going to have fun, whether I'm working with Katie or Doris or Hubie Brown or JJ Redick or Richard Jefferson, because at the end of the day, guys, it's sports, right? It's supposed to be fun, and it's walking that fine line between engaging your analyst and having tactical insights and observations and having fun with the game.
Well, it's never a question mark that you're having fun on a broadcast.
Yeah.
You're one of the best.
If you don't have seasoning, man, you shouldn't be on air. Honestly, just a little bit of seasoning. I don't do bland. You know.
Somebody on Sunday needs that Black Air Force energy. That's what we need.
By the way, just so you know, before we get you out of here, when I like shoot a paper into the garbage can or whatever, I now yell butter when I make it. That's my new go-to. It's so good. So
I love it.
Appreciate you for that. Appreciate you for hopping on, and we'll do this again soon, man. Thank you so much. Have a great call Sunday.
You got it, guys. Look forward to seeing you guys at the